Good afternoon from Allen Fieldhouse in lovely Lawrence, Kansas. I am Brendan Dzwierzynski for the Sports on 580 team at Allen Fieldhouse this afternoon and part of this morning. Victors over the Indiana Hoosiers in a top 15 matchup in blowout fashion, 84-62. KU improves to 10-1 on the season. Meanwhile, Indiana, the 14th ranked team in the country, they've now lost 3 of their last 4, lost back-to-back games. They are now 8-3 overall. And there are plenty of impressive, gaudy, significant statistics from this game. And we'll get to some of those offensive numbers coming up here in just a moment because 6 different Jayhawks scored in double figures in the game. But this contest was all about the KU defense, specifically the job they did on Trayce Jackson-Davis, the preseason All-American from Indiana, but really in total, a tremendous effort all game long from KU. Here's some of the individual totals that Indiana was able to put up in this game. Trayce Jackson-Davis, perfect example of this. 13 points in the contest. Came into today averaging 16.8 a game, 64.5% from the field. He was held to just 4 of 8 shooting the ball. Yeah, KU held a preseason All-American, a big man, which is supposed to be one of the weaknesses for this KU team, held him to just 8 shots in the game. Now, he did end up with a pretty good defensive day of his own, blocking 9 shots, which is a new record for any opponent against KU. So an impressive day for Jackson-Davis defensively, but the KU defense was able to shut him down. He did not score for the first 18 and a half minutes of the game. His first 2 points came on a dunk with 1:29 to go in the first half. As a team, Indiana shot just 20 of 53 overall. That's just 37.7%, not even 38% from the game. And they went 6 out of 19 from three-point range. This isn't an Indiana team that likes to shoot the ball from 3 all that much. They shot it 19 times against KU, 14 of those coming in the first half, and KU was still able to hold them to just 31.6% shooting from three-point range in this game. KU also had 17 steals in the contest. They forced Indiana to turn the ball over 23 times. They recorded 17 steals, which is the most for any KU team going back at least as far as 2010. So a tremendous overall defensive effort from KU in this game. Kevin McCullar had 5 steals. That ties his season high. And 5 steals as well for Gradey Dick, the freshman. That is a new career high for Dick. Meanwhile, Gradey Dick also had a great offensive day for KU. He ends up with a game-high 20 points in the win. He goes 8 of 12 from the floor, 4 out of 5 from three-point range. We already mentioned those 5 steals, and let's throw 6 rebounds into the mix for Dick as well. He had a tremendous game from the very beginning until the very end. Like I mentioned, though, he is one of 6 Jayhawks who scored in double figures in this game. Every single member of the starting lineup for KU scored in double figures. 3 players got to exactly 11 points. That includes Jalen Wilson, McCullar, who we just talked about, as well as KJ Adams. We'll start with Wilson, even though this was arguably his worst offensive game of the season. He was just 4 out of 18 from the floor, 1 out of 6 from three-point range, and 11 points is the fewest he has scored in a game this season. Impressive, he's been in double figures in every game, but the fewest points he has scored in a game this season, and KU didn't even need him to have a big offensive day to still win by 22 points over a top 15 team. Meanwhile, for McCullar, this is his second double-double of the season. He ends up with 11 points and 11 rebounds in the contest to go along with those 5 steals that we mentioned just a moment ago. And for KJ Adams, he just continues to ascend and play better and better basketball for this KU team. That's now 4 games in a row in which Adams has gone into double figures. The only 4 games in his career in which he has scored in double figures. He ends up with 11 points in the game. Pretty efficient shooting day for him as well. And he was the spark plug for KU early on in the game when nothing else was quite going right, and obviously KU did just fine. They were up big at the half by 15 points. They win the game by 22, but he scored the first 7 points in the game, including 3 of 3 at the free throw line. And after starting the year 2 out of 13 from the line, KJ has made 9 of his last 11 from the free throw line. The other 2 double-digit scorers in this game for KU, DeJuan Harris, who also had a double-double, as well as Bobby Pettiford. Pettiford coming off the bench. He had to play a lot in the first half due to some early foul trouble for Harris. He ends up with 10 points in the game and was singled out, getting some praise for playing those big bench minutes from head coach Bill Self. Meanwhile, Harris, scoreless in the first half, had the 2 early fouls, comes out and plays an absolutely sensational second half, ends the game with 10 points and 10 assists in the game. That ties a career high for him. A couple of real highlight plays as well. If you head over to the Sports on 580 Twitter account at Sports on 580, you'll see some of the tremendous passes he made in this game, see some of the moments when watching here at the game, I thought, oh my goodness, there really is a reason why more and more people are considering him one of the best point guards, not just in the Big 12, but in the entire country, including one just threading the needle with a one-handed bounce pass to a cutting Zuby Ejiofor who jumped up, dunked the ball. A really impressive day for Harris. And again, all of his 10 points came in the second half. He just told us during post-game press conferences a few moments ago that what Indiana does defensively with their big men, going into that drop coverage, he knew he was going to get easy shots all day long. At one point in time, he had 3 consecutive buckets on that many trips for KU, going with the floater, which has been such an important and effective part of his game for a couple years now, made Indiana pay with that, ends up with 10 and 10 for the game. One other player who should be pointed out, and he got attention from Bill Self in the postgame, and he looked tremendous just based on the eye test during this contest as well, Dzwierzynski, who was the number 2 big man off the bench behind KJ Adams, who again has been playing phenomenally as of late. Dzwierzynski ends this game with 8 points in the contest, grabs just 2 rebounds, but was playing sensational defense, caught a couple of lobs. His athleticism was praised by his teammates yet again during postgame, and he got a lot of hype from his head coach, Bill Self, during postgame press conferences as well. KU has really just needed to bring somebody along as the number 2 big man behind KJ Adams, whether it is Dzwierzynski, whether it is Ernest Uday. And Self even said that if Ejiofor wasn't able to get it done today, they would have gone to Zach Clements, but Adams was great, Ejiofor was great, and KU comes away with the big win. We'll get you the final shooting totals for KU. We already got them for Indiana. The Jayhawks end up for the game 35 out of 68 from the floor. That's 51.5%. They ended up shooting perfect from the free throw line as well, 7 of 7. They only went 7 times to the free throw line, still put up 84 points, and still knocked off Indiana by a margin of 84-62. So the AP poll is obviously going to change coming up on Monday. You would imagine after a third loss in 4 games, all of which have come, to be fair to Indiana, 2 power conference opponents, Arizona against Kansas now. Those are the most 2 recent losses for IU. They're going to fall from the number 14 spot. Meanwhile, KU, they blow out Missouri on the road last week, which whatever that is worth, still an impressive win for KU. Then they blow out Indiana at home. Again, a top 15 team this week. You would imagine that the Jayhawks will be on the move up from number 8 in this week's poll. Also, for those of you into the advanced numbers, into the Ken Pomeroy numbers, KU, with this game already in the books, is up to 5th in the national Ken Pom rankings this week. Indiana did not fall due to its performance, though. They are still ranked number 16 in the country, according to Ken Pomeroy. But that's going to do it for me from Allen Fieldhouse today. Again, your final score, the Kansas Jayhawks 84 and the Indiana Hoosiers 62. Don't forget that coming up on Monday, both on Mic'd Up from noon to 3 and on 580 Sports Talk from 3 to 6, myself, Dan Lucero, Jake Laban, Fulton Caster will have full recaps from this game, all the impressive performances for KU. We'll also be talking about K-State versus Nebraska, the Chiefs game against the Texans, and so much more. That's Mic'd Up with Jake and Fulton from noon to 3, and then 580 Sports Talk with myself, Brendan Dzwierzynski, and Dan Lucero coming up from 3 to 6 on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW. But signing off from Allen Fieldhouse in Lawrence, I'm Brendan Dzwierzynski for the Sports on 580 Crew.